Welcome to the Hibbing Economic Development Authority regular meeting agenda. Today is January 22nd, 2024. Attendance, we have everyone in attendance with the exception of Member Schweiberger. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Additions, deletions, add board report number 1. Approval of the agenda. We get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
I will second that.
seconded by Member Kivala. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes. The first one is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority for December 18th, 2023. Do we have a motion?
I will make that motion to approve.
Motion made by Vice President Drainus,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The second one is to approve the minutes of the workshop of the Hibbing Economic Development Authority for December 18th, 2023. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to the consent agenda. Number 1, affirm the Economic Development Loan Fund as of December 2023 in the amount of $1,452,337.05. Number 2, approve the disbursements for the month of December in the amount of $67,866.56. Number 3, set the next regular meeting of Heda for Monday, February 26, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber due to the holiday. And number 4, set the next Heda working session for Monday, February 26, 2024, following the regular meeting in the Hibbing City Hall Council Chamber due to the holiday. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read and published.
Motion made by Member Hoffman Sockman,
I'll second that motion.
supported by Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, is the 6 p.m. correct?
Madam President, if I may.
Yes.
Madam President, members of the board, the 6 p.m. timeframe is to accommodate a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which is scheduled for the same night at 5 o'clock. And because we have to move hours from, that Monday of the 19th, we have to shift.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. On to the presentations. Betsy.
Madam President, members of the board, tonight I have 3 different topics that I want to brief you on prior to any topics being undertaken for approval. The first is the Heda Lawrence subordination request for Mr. Rich Lees on his 101 Howard Street property. You will notice in your packet behind the agenda that there is both the loan write-up talking about how this suits our loan fund guidelines and his subordination request that has been written up. And at this time, Sheena and I have reviewed, it's very basic. We usually are in a junior position on Mr. Lee's loans. And I will point out a couple of things. One, that all payments are current and in accordance. And if you look at the Excel spreadsheet that Sheena printed out, it's on the second side. You will notice that the sum of the loans is less than the amount of the life insurance, so he is favorable on that position as well. So at this time, staff is recommending approval of that, and that will come before you in a later portion of the agenda for consideration. Any questions on that presentation?
Yes. So Betsy, if there are any expenses incurred, like legal fees or anything like that, redoing the paperwork or anything like, would that then be who will be paying for that?
Madam President, Member Hoffman-Sockman, that always is billed back to the project themselves.
Okay.
To pay for their filing fees and those sorts of
Okay,
things.
good,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Madam
Any-
President, the only comment I would make with regard to the request, and maybe to address part of Councilor Hoffman-Sockman's, so the subordination agreement was drafted by Selman Title Company, who was working for Mr. Lees with respect to that. They submitted it to Betsy for
Okay.
approval. So if you guys approve this tonight and it gets executed, it would go back to Selman Title. They'll record it on behalf of Rich. So because Rich has already actually completed the loans that are he asked him to subordinate, he is actually sitting in first position at the moment because he's already had those documents recorded. But for context, so the face value of where we were before he did this refinance, the face value on the loans outstanding was just over $3 million. Now, Heda would be behind, but $1.96 million. So he's consolidated and made the loans that are against this property significantly smaller than what they were before.
Okay. So I guess having heard that, and if there isn't any other discussion, I'd definitely make a motion to approve.
Yep, and that will come before you in a
Later.
little bit further.
Okay.
Yep,
Yep.
yep,
Yep.
excellent.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and so then number 2 is the 400 block redevelopment update. In your packet tonight, you will notice that when this was referred from city council, they had approved a $500,000 fund, which was an interfund loan from the city's general fund to this project fund. And at that time, they had approved up to $100,000 of service agreements to start the work on this process on phase 1. At this time, there are 2 additional things that we need to accomplish, and one of those is working with Baker Tilly to do some TIF runs, and another is some legal fees and things. So the entire sources and uses and how those funds have been expended are in your packet. And that particular page, I'm just going to show you so you can see what it looks like here, because I know there's a lot of paper. Oh, goodness sakes. And none of it's, of course, like page numbered in order. 1 second. Okay, so this is what the current sources and uses looks like. It says code at the top, 418, 46, 6500, 300. That is the current running sources or uses of funds for this particular 400 block redevelopment. And so when it was originally approved by City Council in August, they had approved $100,000. You can see that the current total uses would be about $142,000, which is why tonight I'll be asking that you approve an additional $50,000 of service agreements for that project. That will allow us to get all the way through phase 1. And the rest of the consultants, so LHB, NTS, which is our Northeast Technical Services, Cole Appraisal, which will be doing the appraisal on the property, Streeter Consulting, Miriam Carroll, who will be writing our grant, and then, let's see, Vite will all be on property February 1st and 2nd to get inside the buildings, look at them, get a really good understanding of what it will take if we are to demolish that Ace Hardware building. They will also be looking at the other properties that are adjacent to it to consider that as well, along with an appraisal, so that I can put together a good offer for the private owner of that land. At this point, we do not have site control, but the owner is working with us in consideration of the potential of the city acquiring those properties. So we're putting together what that all looks like, what will be required, and then we'll put together a potential offer for that private landowner. So that will all be coming before you at a later portion in the agenda. So any questions on that at this time?
Yeah, what's the role of each of those people you mentioned that are meeting?
Okay, so LHB has to do the building study to declare if it's deteriorated, if it's rehabable, what the structure is and the condition is, in order to be able to declare it unrehabable or that it needs to come down in its current condition. There are some very specific requirements if you want to do a redevelopment TIF that the building needs to meet in order for that designation to be set. So that's what LHB will be doing. NTS will be looking for, is there anything inside the buildings that needs to be mitigated or potential asbestos, lead paint, those sorts of things within the buildings, so that as we demolish them, they would be able to help us determine what that looks like and how much it will cost to take them down, and what the tipping fees and those sorts of things would be like. Coal appraisal obviously will be in there to do an appraisal as is and for potential highest and best use for the city. And then Miriam Carroll is going to help us with the grant work around writing that deed redevelopment grant, which is due August 1st. So that potentially, as long as I have a developer, that I can secure between now and then to redevelop that property, potentially you could get some grant funds to take those down instead of bearing that cost on the city itself. And I think that was it. Vite is doing the demolition estimate itself. So NTS and Vite are working together to figure that part out.
So Betsy, we underestimated by 50,000 then? Is that kind of what I'm hearing here?
Well, so I came to city council initially with kind of I'm not exactly sure what it's going to cost. So yes, as we went along, the costs further refined, and now I have a little bit better understanding of what it will take to finish phase one.
Thank you.
Betsy, this was just for the Ace Hardware building, or if we end up purchasing
It would be for all of them,
all of them, so to clean up that whole block and make it
yes.
redevelopable?
Right, right. And when we go to deed, it requires some very specifics around that. You can't have like a cost per square foot estimated from an architect or what have you. It has to be, this is exactly, what we could envision it will take. Because when we've worked with the deed grant around the brownfield redevelopment with the iClinic North, they're very specific about you have X amount of yards of dirt that you're moving, and cubic yards can be put back, and you can't go over that, period, the end. They approve it, and that's where it's at. So that's why we have to be so specific.
I guess I'm just kind of questioning Vite's role in this, because we do have, they're out of the cities, and we do have local contractors that would be eligible to this. They're not being hired to do the project? They're
No.
just being, you're looking at them to price it then?
Yep.
Okay, because I just want to remind everybody that we do have people that are good Hibbing tax-paying members here that could handle that project rather easily. There's 2 or 3 contractors in town that could do
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And they are not a local contractor.
Right, and so as we've been kind of going out to get all of this stuff together, all of the costs and those sorts of things, we have been putting that out. Are you interested in submitting estimates and what have you? So we've been trying to work with as many local contractors as possible. And I've had these conversations out there that, I'm not getting as much participation in some of that. And so I've kind of been asking them, and they've said, we'd like to wait until it's actually out for bid or those sorts of things, because when they put their effort in, they want it to be around actually getting the job. So, I can understand some of that.
Their demo estimate, is that what they feel it will cost for the dumping of the material?
Well,
Not
to
the
take it down, demolition, hiring the equipment out.
Okay, so they're going to give you an estimate for taking it down. Very good.
And to clean it all up and leave
Yeah,
it level.
All right, very good.
So would their estimate be based on prevailing wages?
Yes, it has to be.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because deed requires that as well.
Yep.
All right, any other
Great.
questions on that particular project? Okay, and then finally, I do have Mr. Scott Zahorik here tonight. I asked him to come and chat with the EDA board a little bit about the project that he is bringing, hopefully, or with some potential funding that he's seeking right now, to the city of Hibbing, and we've been partnering on trying to find potential land for development, those sorts of things. So if Mr. Zahork would like to approach the podium at this time and give us a slight rundown on the project and just an update on where he's at. Scott Zahork is the Executive Director of AEOA, which is our community action group here in St. Louis County, and they serve multiple counties, but I'll let him talk a little bit about the potential for a project in Hibbing.
Thank you, Betsy.
Hi, Scott.
Thank you, Madam President and members. As Betsy said, I'm Scott Zahork from AEOA. And yeah, we're working on a project because of a few things. We have a big housing issue here in northeast Minnesota, and we've got some opportunities that we're working on to try and do something about that. So we've got a few projects. We're working with St. Louis County on a project where they would convey tax forfeited homes to us. We would do substantial rehab on them and then turn around and sell them as workforce housing. We're working with the city on the Housing Trust Fund, which would also rehabilitate houses in the city of Hibbing. We're working with the IRRB to, if you're familiar with the Business Energy Retrofit Program that works with businesses to make energy improvements to their building, we've got an application in to do the same thing for homeowners. So to do this, then we also have a senior services department that serves a little over 300,000 meals a year, and we have an opportunity to make that 500,000 meals a year. We're working on all of this in two places. We rent space over in the old Votech from Rich Lee's for our housing side of things, and we rent a commercial kitchen at the Lee Center to prepare these meals for folks. Well, with this additional work and all of this expansion, we're renting that space over there. We're renting 12,500 square feet, and we've way outgrown that space. And so that costs us a little over about $90,000 a year. So we started reaching out to the local legislators, and what we'd like to do is build a new building that is probably going to be a little bit bigger than 34,000 square feet, and we're going to double our housing staff. And we want to put a state-of-the-art kitchen in it to prepare these meals, where it would have all of the refrigeration needs, the cooking needs, a flash freezer, labeling, and all of those kinds of things. And looking to put that out, and we started talking with the city and with the airport, and we've kind of, well, we have. There's still some work to be done there. Been looking at a parcel just north of where the Airway Inn is, you know, and looking at the new entrance to the airport. It would be just behind where the Airway Inn is now, and it's 9 acres. We've been working with Barrett Zemer and the Airport Commission out there on that, and there's still some work to be done, but we're also approaching the legislature for $7 million through cash bonding. And we've got a commitment from St. Louis County for 1.2, a verbal commitment from St. Louis County at this point for 1.2 million. And we're also looking at going to the IRRB for $1.5 million. So that would, if all of those things happen, would get us the cash we need to build this building. And what we're looking for, did the packets go in their
Yes.
packets? Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, then it's in there about the handouts and kind of where we are. So this is kind of preliminary information on it. It's been a bit of a moving target as we try and move this along. If you look on the back of it, there's pictures of what the building could look like. It's a packet of about 6 or 8 pages. But, you know, this would be huge for housing across St. Louis County and the range and everything too, because if we start flipping these houses, the biggest problem has been most of the communities don't have much choice with tax forfeited homes. If they put them out for sale and they don't sell, the only choice is to take them down if they're, you know, if they're on the books too long. And then it becomes a bigger problem for all the communities, because then you have, in some cases, very small lots that are not buildable, and they sit there, or people start storing things on them and stuff like that too. What we want to do is offer a real alternative to that. Take that house, do a gut rehab. I mean, most of them, these are older homes, they're all plaster and lath. They've got antiquated electrical systems, HVAC systems, plumbing systems. So when we say gut rehab, we would basically take it down to the studs inside and out and rebuild the house and upgrade all the systems in the home. And then our plan is to sell them to folks as workforce housing and try and make a truly affordable option. People are building modest homes out there now, and the cost is about $350,000. So depending on what you build, and we're looking at these, and we've already looked at 11 homes all across the range. And our hard cost estimates on the homes would be that they would be, we'd have about if we had the home conveyed to us at no cost, we'd put about $200,000 into those homes. And then we're looking for gap financing for the homes to the tune of about $40,000 a home. And we want to put them back on the market for about $160,000 on average and sell them as workforce housing so that we can get the new nurse at the hospital, the new, firefighters, police and everything too, and really sell them a quality home at a decent price. And then some of the other things that go along with it, with like the homeowner energy retrofit program to help existing homeowners make their upgrades on their homes. That program would be, so you could do like a $45,000 project on your home. IRRB would cover $15,000 of it. And then we've been working with Park State Bank here in town. If folks need a loan to cover the remainder of that, they can go to Park State Bank and get a low interest loan to finance the rest of it. And then the other piece would be the Housing Trust Fund and how that fits into all of this, provided that we can get that funded too. So there's a lot of gray here yet because we're pretty early in the game with a lot of these things. But we've got Spencer Igo and some other folks, Rob Farnsworth and folks that are working with us on the legislature. We've got some folks down in St. Paul working on it. And my gauge on this is nobody's told me no yet. So we're going to continue on. So I came to the city council last week asking for their help and support and wanted to come put it in front of you folks too, to kind of have it on your radar too, so that we could hopefully garner your support as well for the project. And there will be a list of things as we start looking at the development of it too, with utilities and infrastructure and things like that too. But then we're going to make a real serious investment in this too, because in that handout, there's a picture in there of our staff today that are over there. So there's 35 people in that picture that you can barely see in that picture, and then 30 vehicles in front of it. That's what we have today over at the VOTEC in Hibbing, and we're already looking to double it. So tomorrow, we've already got 2 trucks that aren't in this picture. We're getting another one tomorrow, and we're growing already, trying to meet this need. And we've just, so if you're familiar with the VOTEC, we rent most of the north side of the building over there. It's kind of in a residential area. We're not a great neighbor. We come to work early. We make lots of racket. We take up all kinds of parking. We've got semis coming in there, dropping stuff off. And that's where we really need to get into a little bit more of a rural setting where we can grow to meet these needs, help all the communities do something about their local housing, and really do it right. And the bonus is, then we also get that senior kitchen in there, and we put out 200,000 more meals a year across the Northland, feeding seniors all across the Northland.
So Scott, what I hear you saying, you're looking for a regional site for your new facility.
Yes.
With good access to highways, of course, which you have. And your new program, where you use tax forfeit properties, this will be a whole new program that you're going to be starting.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
This hasn't been done anywhere.
Right.
And I think this one has a huge amount of potential, because if we can do it here, we can do this all over the place.
Can we, so you'd consider this more of a pilot project to start with? In a sense that
Sure.
you're taking the first step forward to see whether this can work or not, which it sounds like it should, especially if you're renovating like to the extent that you are, where you're taking down to the bare bones and then rebuilding and making a house affordable at 160,000, which, you know, seems crazy, but that's affordable nowadays. And so I'm excited to see where you can go with this.
So I brought it up at our board meeting, and we've got a number of county commissioners on our board as well. And Casey Venema from Itasca County immediately raised his hand and said Itasca County's next.
Yeah.
So
So
these
I
are
mean,
two separate projects then that you have? I mean, you're gonna acquire the land by the airway to build there? And
Yes.
then you're also gonna be getting these tax forfeited homes to rejuvenate them? They're like two separate big thing,
Correct.
major projects you got going on.
the building kind of stands on its own as a facility that's gonna help us pull up, you know, do these things that I'm talking about. Then there's 3 other programs that are all gonna be new. And I should have said along with it too, currently what we do over out of our Hibbing office that we have now, we won't run a wide variety of housing programs over there already. We do, it's about $8.5 million a year that we do out of our current facility, and this would just about double it. And we're already vested in Hibbing. We've been here for a long time. The 43 employees that we've got over there all live around here. We've already got all of our material suppliers and things that are local, you know, that we use to buy our materials and everything too. So this goes beyond just this building. It goes beyond the 3 programs that I've talked about, but it's also about, you know, the whole thing about this, like the tax forfeited homes. We put these back out and we put young families in those homes. They live here, they work here, their kids go to school here. I mean, there's just, this money just goes on and on and on and resonates through the community tons of times. When we're out buying building materials, it's paying wages down at the local lumber yard to the folks that work there. That comes back into the community. You know, it just, it goes way beyond the numbers that I just mentioned.
And this is new as far as AEOA goes, as far as acquiring these tax forfeited homes?
Yes.
You've never done that through the AEOA
Nope.
in the past?
Nope. We used to do programs where we bought homes and then did this same kind of thing and then turned around and flipped them, you know, but this is much better because in working with St. Louis County, you know, these are problem homes for them that they have no good response to do anything with. And there's a cost that comes with it, even to turn it into a vacant lot, there's the cost to knock that house down. We want to save that cost and then turn around and take care of the house. We're not going to be able to take care of every house. There are homes that are too far gone to save. And so there still will be some of that too. But what I want is a first look at the homes before they get knocked down to see if we can save them, put them back on the tax rolls, put a family in there, you know, and do some good.
Well, I like the idea of having, doing something positive with these homes rather than have an absentee landlord buy them and sell them, because that's an issue within the city. And there's, you know, they rent them, but they don't do any maintenance on them. And, you know, blight seems to grow in those properties. So by repurposing these homes and bringing them up to code, I think it's just a great program.
And then you're gonna get your own people that would be doing all this renovation? You'd be getting like local contractor people, or
Our
who would be
crews and local contractors, yes. We're a licensed contractor too. We've got people on staff that do this kind of work, but we're gonna work with local contractors. We don't wanna take work away from local contractors. If they're there, ready and available to do it, perfect. But there'll be enough work for everybody with this too, because that's why we are a licensed contractor too, and why we run our own crews. Because there's areas where we can't get contractors to do the work, or they're so busy they don't have time to do the work. We use our crews to infill where we can't get it.
So, Madam President, thank you, Scott, for the presentation. It is a very great program, and in your pilot program. Just a couple things here. So you will only be doing homes, right? So, tax forfeited homes, correct?
So, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I guess where I'm going with that is that you're going to complement Habitat for Humanity and not be in competition for our tax forfeited property. Is that correct?
Correct. I've
Okay.
already had some long conversations with Nathan Thompson.
Good.
And we've talked about this, we don't want to duplicate any other
Right,
effort
right.
out here. We want to accelerate the efforts that are already out there. And we've had some conversations with St. Louis County about Habitat, because if the house comes down and the lot's buildable, then we're going to go right to Habitat with them to put a home on that lot. So, yeah, and they do rehab too.
Right, right.
So
So I
it's-
just wanted to, and that's great. I like hearing that. The other thing is the walkability. I know that, you're over in the tech center. Do you have a lot of folks that might be a problem for them, being where you're looking at your new location for services or that type of a thing? Or,
Not specifically that we're aware of
Okay.
yet because of locations and stuff, but all the houses that we've looked at so far have been in town, and there's the services in town. We looked at houses from Hibbing to Aurora with the first 11 that we looked at, and those were homes that St. Louis County had picked out as targets for them, homes that they thought fit this profile. They're still gonna sell the homes that they can sell. But the problem they've been having is when they sell some of those homes, or when the original owner picks them back up, then they nothing gets fixed. They turn the power and the gas back on, and nothing gets fixed. And then the problem just gets worse.
no, this is great. So thank you for investing in Hibbing. Appreciate that.
Roger, looks like
Next
you've been
up.
waiting.
Oh, yeah, I'm waiting my turn patiently.
Yep.
First of all, I like your idea out at the airport there. I can see you have a need there, and you'd have like Meals on Wheels program working out of there, and I think that's very healthy for a community. But I am gonna go after the housing thing. I've been a contractor basically all my life. I've probably looked at 100+ of those houses, probably worked on a couple dozen of them. Lath and plaster, the first thing you gotta do, you gotta check for asbestos, because oftentimes there's asbestos in the plaster before you can deal with it. There's a lot of lead problems in a lot of those older houses. When you take them down to the shell, you took it down to the cheapest part there is to build, is the shell. I mean, people come and toss those up in a few days. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but you really have to select those houses carefully to get that in. And that's my experience, and I've been doing it for 40 years. So I see it as there are some housing in there, because I've looked at lots of them that would fit underneath your criteria, but there's an awful lot of other ones that would cost substantially more than what it's worth. So it's really something that and it's really hard to hardball anything, because do you have to dig the sewer out to the street or not? You don't know until you get into it. What's the condition of the foundation? A lot of the stuff you can see ahead of time, a lot of stuff you can't see till you get into it. So it's really difficult to get really solid pricing on it.
So two things, I'll start in order. One, I should have mentioned, by working with St. Louis County on these with the lead and asbestos that's in the home, they're doing the abatement on that side prior to handing the home over to us. They have money for that. So that takes care of one potentially expensive piece. You're exactly right about the house condition. That 200,000 I mentioned is basically an average on what we've looked at for the homes that we've looked at. Some will be more, some will be less, kind of a thing then too. And I do have, so I've been doing housing stuff for 34 years, but I do have my number 2 running our housing department is Dave Johnson, who has 20 years as an independent contractor and the last 15 working for us. I'm not saying we've seen everything we can possibly bump into, because rehab is rehab, and you're exactly right. There's always a surprise everywhere, but we've looked at so many homes over the years too that I think we're in pretty good shape with this coming out of the gate, just with the condition of the home that we're gonna get and that average being 200,000. But we've got a little wiggle room in there, because some are gonna cost more, and there will be a surprise, and there will be something that you don't see until you get into it.
Yeah.
We built a little contingency into it too, because You always need it.
You have to.
This old house, there's a reason the private sector's not out there doing it.
Madam President?
Yes.
So if I may, a couple of things just to kind of tie this up in a little bit neater of a bow. One, that local housing trust fund that Scott's talking about, that will be going through city council, and I've asked city council to then refer that over. We will have a little bit more conversation on that in our workshop tonight, because I would like that to be facilitated by Heda, based on the fact that the EDA has the loan fund guidelines and all of those sorts of things. So working with our expert partners here, as Scott is talking about, I would like them to be a part of that policy and process making after the city council takes up the ordinance and considers that. So if they do end up passing it and refer it to the EDA, then we will work with our expert partners like AEOA to sort of refine where those priorities for that funding would be. As Scott is alluding to, one of those will definitely need to be owner-occupied rehab within the city limits of Hibbing around that tax forfeit and some of this work that AEOA will be doing, because there will be a significant need in that area in order to turn those houses back into workforce housing and bring them back on the tax rolls, which obviously benefits then the city of Hibbing and St. Louis County both. So there's that. One other thing, Scott is talking about this programming being new, and while it is new to St. Louis County and to AEOA, there are others doing similar programs, not exactly as Scott is talking about, but he has studied enough out there from folks who are doing these, such as One Roof with their construction company, Common Ground, who is doing this kind of work with other areas in town. So they're doing this near Duluth in some of the more rural areas there, and working with Kutaska in Itasca County, working on some of that. As Scott alluded to, Itasca County, of course, wants to solidify this a little bit more because they're doing some pilot programming there, but they're not necessarily, they don't have a city signing up saying, we're willing to help, here's some funds, this is how we can work with you. So there's a lot of moving pieces around this, but also AEOA has a really long history of doing owner-occupied rehabs. The reason they got out of it originally the first time was because the funding streams became very unwieldy to facilitate and keep going. So a little house at 150,000 would have 7 funding streams. Well, it's almost I mean, we look at our little, small business loans that are coming through here, right? And we're trying to contribute to their ability to do a better job and be, impactful in the city of Hibbing. And when you're managing several funding streams with one housing rehab and all the requirements and things that come along with that, it got to be unwieldy. So we're hoping to partner with AEOA to have a good program that will stand the long term and really be impactful around rehabbing our housing stock here in Hibbing. We found in our comprehensive housing needs analysis, which we have shared with AEOA, that there's a need for that, and our naturally occurring affordable housing is doing some great things here in Hibbing as long as we can maintain it and keep it up to par. So Scott's programming and the new things that they're bringing online will all be sort of housed out of this newer facility. And I wanted him to come and, chat with you all tonight, because we've been really collaborating with our airport and that airport commission on getting their shovel-ready sites and some of the sites that they own around the airport suitable for development of this sort, ready for folks like Scott to build new facilities on. So the request that I have a little bit later in the agenda is to assist with that site certainty, to assist with potentially a phase 1 around that, because right now we haven't done any due diligence on the site. So I have that in there and suggested that that might be a way that the EDA could contribute. It's not something we normally do, but it would be once our local housing trust fund, if that passes, is a thing. So it's one of the things I'll have you consider, and I know Scott would be appreciative, but also, as he said, we're looking for lots of different kinds of funding and partnering on making this project a reality, so.
Scott, when you say you have 43 employees, I think, right now, and you're looking at
43, yeah.
doubling your staff is what you're looking at doing at this point.
What was that?
You're looking at doubling your staff.
Yeah, it'll be about 80 people that we'd have in the new building to meet the need for what we're
Yep.
talking about with the new programs.
And I appreciate, you know, I don't think people realize, and I brought it up, you know, AEO has the biggest busing service in the state of Minnesota, second biggest in the country. So it seems like everything you guys do is well thought out and very successful, so.
We try, just like Home on the Range.
Yep.
I don't, you know, I talk quickly about some of these things and maybe oversimplify some of them and everything
Yep.
too. But even like Home on the Range, 54-bed homeless shelter that we've got going here in
Yep.
town, 13 funding streams, $4.5 million.
Yeah.
You know, they're not easy, but the time is right for some of this stuff to where we can do it, we can make it happen, and we need it.
Yes.
You know, we need to do something with our housing stock. All these homes we looked at were over 100 years old. They have good bones. They were built well when they were built, you know, but they just haven't had any deferred maintenance done in a really long time. But we don't have to drive very far. I've done a lot of deed grants over the years. They're small cities development program. And one of the things that we had to do for those was a windshield survey where you drive through town and you look at every single home in town. Do that. Pick a block in town, throw a dart anywhere you want. Don't go to Brooklyn, that's just way too easy, but pick a different block, you know, and drive around and look at homes. We've got a lot of work that needs to be
Yeah.
done. The people living in these homes can't afford to do it on their own. We've got to start providing some resources, and we've got to start rolling that snowball down the hill. Because that's the one thing with every project I've done in my career, you do one thing, you get some ancillary benefits out of it. You know, one of the things that a lot of towns have had success with, and I don't know if this would be on your radar or not, but they did a lot of mini grant programs where an EDA or somebody would put a pot of money out there and say, you can get up to $500 to put a new window on the front of your house or put a new door in and things like that. All you had to do was take a before and after picture of the work you had done. And once it's done, then you have the final picture. Then they would chip in like $500. All these little things all make a difference. We did a thing in Virginia where we went through a neighborhood and just picked up garbage. The city came and picked it up for free, but we went and picked up garbage in a neighborhood. There's so many things we can do that don't have to cost a lot of money, you know, so it's just a matter of where we choose to expend our energy and where we start. But this one with tax forfeited homes, I think this could just take off once that example's out there and people realize what they can do. That's why I want to be first to the legislature to get some money before everybody else jumps on the bandwagon. Because what we're planning to do is go to the legislature for $2 million to start this off, which would do 13 homes a year, and then find the money for the gap, and then keep that money set aside and keep revolving that money, keep finding gap, and just continue on with this process. Because there isn't anybody out there that's rehabbing, and that was the small side of it. We were looking between 2 and 5 million to do this, but even 13 a year, there's nobody out there doing this to 13 homes a year.
Right.
And it's a good start. It's not going to be the end all to our housing needs in Hibbing and across the range, but it's a good start. And the time is right. They've got a lot of housing money down in St. Paul right now. I want to help them spend some of it, and I want to bring it up here.
Yes, yes. Yes, I think it sounds wonderful as well. You know, it's definitely resources that you provide to the city, to the, you know, to the community that is very well needed. I mean, just like the Meals on Wheels. You know, I mean, that's an excellent program. You know, it helps your older people, you know, you got a lot of good programs out there. You help people with their vehicles or, you know, to try to get them a, you know, decent vehicle to go to and from work. So, you know, what you do for the community is, it's very, I kudos to you guys. You really do good work there.
And we don't tell our story very well. You know,
Just
a lot of it's kind of hidden, but that really doesn't matter. This isn't about AEOA. This is about looking around our communities and looking at what needs to be done
Right.
and trying to figure out how we can work together
Yeah.
to make a bigger impact. We all live here.
Right.
I want it to look better around here too.
Absolutely. And I guess just a question, I mean, I don't really know about how the tax forfeited homes work or whatever, but, I mean, as far as what you pay for them, does the county set a price for that home? Or do they put, is it a bid that you have to do, or how do you
Oh,
acquire?
when we sell them?
Well, no, when you first acquire them from St. Louis County, these tax forfeited homes, what is the price, or who determines what that cost that you're gonna pay?
It's, the properties have already been reverted back to the county. They've already tried to sell them. So to the county, there's no value, there's a liability. Because if they take them down, they have to do, as Roger said, and go in there and do all the abatement. You know, get rid of the lead paint and the asbestos and everything else, and then they can knock the house down, and then you've still got a lot that you can't do anything with. So it's a cost then at that point. So what they're looking to do, we're gonna have, they've got it what the assessed value of the home, and we're gonna use that as some of the match for some of the funding that we're looking for, because sometimes we need to get match. One home that we looked at in Evelyn, the assessed value is $56,000 the way it sits. So that'll help us get some of this other money that I'm talking about, but they're gonna convey them to us for free. That's their investment into housing in St. Louis County. So then we just take over, they're gonna convey them to us for free, and they're gonna abate them. So the lead paint will be gone, the asbestos will be gone, because a lot of these homes have slate siding. They've got old boilers with asbestos on the piping and stuff like that. And they're probably gonna even take care of some of the lath and plaster for us, because some of that contains asbestos too. So we'll really start with the blank slate. Most of that demo will already be done, and we'll just jump in and take over from there and put the house back together.
So they're counting on a tax base being created, that's why they're doing this.
They are.
Yep,
So, at a Rams meeting, Julie Marinucci had made a presentation. Have you been in contact with her because of the Tyler versus Hennepin County?
Yes, Counselor Hoffman Sockman,
lawsuit?
that is the person that they're working with at St. Louis County, is Julie Marinucci.
Yes.
And there's some wiggle room in the state with conveying for affordable housing purposes. This one purpose.
Okay, because that did come up, and that
Yep.
was really affecting Habitat for Humanity, that they
Correct.
just cannot walk in and get the tax forfeited property.
Correct, yep. We had approved a bunch at city council a while back, and they're in a holding pattern with St.
Right.
Louis County to convey those properties because of that very thing. Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, Julie's been at some of the very first meetings that we've had, and we've also had folks from the IRRR there too, because they're looking at making an investment in this as well. And the Blandon Foundation is kind of revamping their whole look too, and we're also reaching out to them too. So, you know, like I said, this is a bit of a moving target. We're kind of here early in the conversation to you folks, you know, and everything too, and there's still some pieces we're gonna look at. I'm hoping what we can do is really drum up some excitement with this once we start turning the first couple houses, and then I'm hoping we can get people to jump on board and really accelerate the process. Our building out there might need to be bigger.
yeah.
We might need to leave room for an addition right away.
That's good.
And we've got a huge investment in this too, so this isn't just AEOA going everywhere asking for help and everything too. If we double our staff, then that picture with those 30 vehicles in it, I need 30 more vehicles. I need 40 more people that are trained and know how to do their jobs and go out and do some of this work and everything. And so, and we need all the tools and equipment that go with it. Our end of this, if we pull this off, I'm estimating it's gonna cost us close to $5 million just to get set up to do it right.
Right,
So we've got skin in the game here too.
right. Well, Scott, I think you have the.
And I don't make that lightly, because if we're gonna have that kind of an investment in this, we've gotta make sure this gets to the finish line and we're coming out the other end of the chute and it works for everybody.
Right. Well, you do have that reputation of running a great organization, and AEOA is a great organization, and you at the helm of it, so thank you for that.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
You bet.
Excellent. So that ends my presentations for tonight. Lots of good information shared, and I really appreciate you coming tonight, Scott. Thank you. I do, yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. So I'll turn the agenda back over to you, Madam President.
Well, it looks like our next up on the agenda would be the board reports, and on for number one is City Attorney Andy Borland. Andy, would you like to give us an update on the 1st and 23rd?
Sure. Madam President, members of the board, back in December, it was determined to, this is specifically with regard to Mr. Smart's property and suite locations, to discuss negotiating a purchase of that from him. And so a purchase agreement was prepared by our office. We got it over to Betsy, and I know Betsy sent it to Mr. Smart on December 20th by email. I honestly haven't heard anything since then, whether you've heard back from Mr. Smart or not. I haven't seen the signed purchase agreement yet. If he has, that's great, we can move forward. I just haven't heard anything more, so maybe Betsy could fill in.
Sure. Yes, the paperwork came back 2 days later, signed
Okay.
by both parties. And it was given to Candy to get Ms. Mikich Brock's signature and move through that process. So, so since that point, I've chatted a little bit with our Public Works, and so they're kind of waiting for when is the date that they can get in there to at least mark the property and let folks know that there is that, you know, wall there, and, you know, that it might be a tripping hazard under the snow, that sort of a thing. So
So you and I just need to talk to then coordinate a
Sure.
closing to resolve that. I just hadn't heard back, and I
Sure.
got lost in the shuffle right around Christmas there, I
Fabulous.
bet, so.
Okay.
I did notice there was 2 private property signs posted there.
What?
At the park.
I think it says private property. There's 2 red signs posted on that property right now.
Well,
I
we
think
didn't
that's what it
post
says.
it. I don't,
We don't
Maybe
own it
Public
yet.
Works
Parking private property?
No parking, I think I saw.
Huh?
I may have seen a no parking,
No parking?
Yeah, I think it says no parking private property.
yeah.
Did the city, so the
No,
city?
they're
put
city
them up?
signs. No,
No, they're
someone
just-
put them there personally.
Yeah,
okay.
like dollar stores.
Well, we'll double check on that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, if, I'll reach out to Candy to get the signature back, signed page of the purchase agreement, then we'll move forward with trying to close that transaction.
Fabulous. Thank you. Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Andy, for that. Number 2, Community Development Director, Betsy. Would you
So,
like-
yes, Madam President, members of the board, at this point, I would request approval of the Heda loan subordination request for 101 Howard Street location per the loan write-up for Mr. Lees as submitted.
I'll move.
Okay, we have a motion made by Member Kivala,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman-Sockman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. On to letter B.
All right, so at this time, I would ask for approval for additional funds for the 400 block redevelopment project in the amount of $50,000 to be forwarded as invoices arrive, because this is an interfund loan agreement, for legal and municipal advising services as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
I'll support that.
supported by Vice President Durenus. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Letter C for E AEOA.
Okay, so letter C is to consider a request to pay for Phase 1 on property ID 141-0020-03020 in an amount up to $2,500 to start the site development on that property.
Can you review what property ID means, first of all?
So it's PID, so it's parcel ID, and that is in St. Louis County language. And the picture of that parcel
Should
was
be
in your packet.
In your
Yep,
packet,
and it was the item that's right north of the airway on that section. It's 9 acres.
Okay, do we have a motion for letter C to consider the request for AEOA to pay Phase 1 for approximately up to $2,500 to assist with site certainty?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Member Hoffman-Sockman. Any further discussion?
Yes, I do have a question here. Why wouldn't the airport, since this is part of their development, why would they not pay for this?
At this time, Barrett has indicated that his economic development fund, which typically he uses for these kinds of projects, is pretty much bare bones. So he did get his reinvestment of the $3,500 from the tax abatement for the DMR property, but he had indicated that that might be already allocated to other things. So this was a way that we could assist with the development of said property and secure that Phase 1 analysis for ourselves, as well as the airport and the project. So we would have access to that information as well, and would share that with the airport from the city's purview.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. No further discussion?
I was going to say, it looks like Member Kivela has a question.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Are you sure?
I try and read the room sometimes. My apologies.
Okay, if there's no other further discussion, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Betsy, for,
And then I have item D.
oh yeah, you got D.
Yep, and this was my addition. So this was to approve the use of funds up to $50,000. Remember, we did apply for that IRRR Commercial Redevelopment Grant, and that's the amount, to demo those internal walls in the North Hibbing building to allow for AMGS to expand operations as RMB moves out of that space. When we did the initial motion, it was to apply for and accept funds if awarded, and this would allow me to spend them if awarded.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the use of funds up to $50,000 to demo the internal walls in the North Hibbing building to allow for that AMGS to expand?
Needs expansion, so I will
Yes.
make that motion.
Motion made by Mayor Hyduk,
Support.
supported by Vice President Joranus. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So that's it for you, Betsy?
Yes, it
on
is,
the-
Madam President.
All right, and then we can move on to number 4, Finance Director Sheena Mulner, and give us a little summary of the loan updates.
Yes, good evening, Madam President, members of the board. I handed out an updated summary sheet of all of the loan balances and some status updates. So I'll go through some highlights with you. There's not really much new with the loans for Damjanovic or the bottle shop or like station. I know we had spoke with this at the last meeting, and everything was turned over to Andy's office to record the confession of judgment. I believe you did that already.
The documents have been filed with the court. We haven't received anything back yet from the court acknowledging whether or not they want anything else from us or whether or not the judgment would just be in.
And then Andy Koshak, that one was set up as ACH. That one's got a few payments left, and that one will be paid off. Moxie, she did catch up her loan, except for January, she made a partial payment on, so we still have part of January balance outstanding. I think Candy was going to try to touch base with her and see if we can't get that caught up. Advanced Machine Guarding Solutions, he started making monthly principal and interest payments, so he's off of the interest only now. As you know, we just talked about the Smart property on 23rd. Libation Station, already touched on that. Previous Fitness, that was another one that in January started making principal and interest payments, so that one's not interest only anymore either. Iron Range Management took 2 more draws on his loan, $4,250 and $7,750, which now brings his total amount drawn to $65,412 out of the $149. You'll see that Northland Laser now is Elevate Skin and Laser LLC. She did reach out to me and let me know that her business had a name change, so we'll be revising, Andy revised the loan documents, so we'll be going through and updating. LBR Assets, that is the Iron House. They had an additional draw within the last month of $26,110, so that brings now their loan balance up to $65,424. And then Iron Range Restaurants, I did reach out to Jacob Hansen. He hasn't had any draws yet. He said he's working on the demo first, so he's still using his IRRB funding. I did remind him that since the loan was signed in September, that it does say 6 months or when construction is done, whichever comes first, so that would bring him into the March date. So I did remind him of that today, and he said he was well aware of that and would start getting draws as soon as he got the demo done. Red Rock Hotel, he's still working on securing his private financing. He did let me know that there were some cuts to the total project cost for phase 1, which would bring it to about $650,000 to get him up to phase 1. So I think the private financing now has become $150,000. Is that correct, Betsy? On those emails?
No, we're going to make him get at least the 250,000. Yeah.
Right. But he was saying that if the IRRB was a source, and then R250 was a source, that his first phase would be 150. But I did say we would need to have our match to be able to draw any of the money.
Correct. We are not allowed to include the IRRR's match to our funding because it won't be approved until March. So Sheena and I did tell him, if he would rather, he can do a 50%, he'll send us the invoice and we'll pay only 50%, so that he can demonstrate his private financing that way, because it must be demonstrated.
So we did talk about that yesterday. We also have, we talked about the life insurance policy as well. He said he would get that to me this week as well. Have that document as well.
Right, so his private financing is coming in to match ours, and then he's bringing additional equity into the 150. That's how that source will shake out.
And then the update on Hartwood Center is that I have the loan documents, so we're going to go through those, and that they're planning on closing on that property at about the first week in February. And then if you turn over to the back side, Fund 420, we just have those 3 loans in there that we are servicing, and so there's no real updates. They're all up to date on that. And then Fund 422 is the new deferred loan program. I did reach out to Katie Winchester on hers. She still has about $13,000 left to draw on that. I haven't heard back from her yet, so I'll update the board as soon as I do hear back on that. And I did speak with Brianna from Mike's Pub today. She said Melhorns will be starting the work on the wall any day now. I did have to send a letter to her to supply to him, just saying that there was proof of financing from both our Heda loan as well as the money from the fire insurance trust funds from when the fire happened. So that has been sent out to her. And then the TRM Inc., that's Sammy's, for the $75,000. So we're at the loan document phase of that and should be hopefully closing this week. They said they'll probably come tomorrow afternoon. With all that being said, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but with the life insurance policy for Lee's, we have $37,000 above the amount we required on his loans for that. And then the cash balances are over off to the right, so you'll see that the total revolving loan fund balances for cash right now is a little over $1,544,000. And then below that, we have all of the loans that have been approved but haven't been drawn on yet, so those are all encumbered amounts of $685,000. If anyone has any questions, I can definitely try to answer anything.
Madam President, Sheena, would you please also give an update on Portful, our loan software that we approved and paid for in the last, couple of months?
Yep, so Cassie's been in it a lot using it. We did have some issues with the software, and initially how it was installed, it was running really slow, but they did go in and work out some of the bugs so that it's running a lot better now. Cassie's been in there. We did get all of the loans updated. The payment history has been imported. She's been working on getting all of our 1098 forms for mortgage interest paid out of that system, so she's got those drafted right now so that we can e-file that and then send out all of those by January 31st to all of the recipients who need those. She's been trying to meet with them every week. I know they're really busy, we're really busy, but she's been pretty much having weekly calls with them to go through that. And there's a lot in that software that we can do. So it is actually very nice with a lot of being able to put documents in the system, notes. It has all of the history of the loan, all the project financing from other sources. You can put pretty much anything in there so that anybody later on can go back and find out all the background on the project and all of the loan servicing stuff. But we're still working through finalizing it, but we have done a lot of it, and it is working really nicely for us.
So at what point do you think it will start saving you time? Because of course, we're having lots more loans come through here, so that was kind of the goal, right, was to start
Yes.
offloading some of that work.
Yeah, so I think it'll save Cassie a lot of time when it comes to doing the ACH, because she won't have to manually do the principal and interest split every time and change it every month, because it'll all be automatic. So when she starts sending that to the bank, and it will already have that detail in there, or if someone wants a payoff estimate, we won't have to go in and do that manually. What it won't do is obviously do all of the signing of the loan documents up front, and then the review of the project invoices, just to make sure that they are what was approved in the project, and whether the money can be drawn. So that piece of it, that will still be done on the side.
Yeah, so what time frame though? Are you thinking end of March now, February?
Well, she never did get a chance to meet with him last week, so she was gonna send an updated email today. And so I'll follow up with her tomorrow and see if she can get with him this week. Then the hope would be that by the February 1st ACH draft, that we could do it out of the system, because then that would be where we'd start saving the time.
Okay. Fabulous.
It'd be a huge time saver.
Yes.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, especially with a portfolio of this size. All these
Yes.
things.
And we'll only grow, so.
Okay, and that's it for Sheena. Nobody else has any questions for Sheena? Okay, if not, I guess we are at the end of our meeting, so we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Member Kivela,
Second?
seconded by Mayor Hyduk. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.